Yeah, everybody, my name is MINOU, and today we're going to be talking about the appeal, the merit of Wings of Fire. You know, a lot of Warriors fans and a lot of just people in general read Wings of Fire. You might be wondering why. Besides the fact that there are super cool dragons, like, what's super appealing about this? So this is basically going to be why I recommend Wings of Fire and some things you can expect to see when reading it. So there will be no spoilers in this one as far as I can possibly prevent. I must add that Talons of Power, I'm not going to be reviewing this. This is just here because this is the only Wings of Fire book I happen to have in the house right now. So yeah. With all that said and done, let's get started. Okay, so one big thing for me that's not actually that big is the fact that it doesn't take itself very seriously. Wings of Fire, it has moments of funniness. Not really funniness, but just like it allows itself to be funny and to not take itself 100% seriously all the time. You know, you have characters that make funny remarks sometimes, who are ridiculous sometimes. You have a lot of capital letters, you'll notice. Like, instead of just using italics, she'll also use capital letters to emphasize things, which is just really funny and gives it like this kind of sense of not that, like, it's kind of personalness. That's kind of, it seems like someone human wrote it, I guess. It's in a way that most books that I read don't, because we use capital letters all the time in YouTube comments, in texting, in anything pretty much that's not super serious. We use capital letters. It's part of kind of the way that we are now as a human race. We use lots of capital letters, and so seeing it in Wings of Fire is really nice. And it just really helps emphasize things and gives the characters just another level of personality. I really love that about Wings of Fire. Another thing is the fantastic world building. She has created these species of dragons with their own abilities, their own queen, their own culture, their own society rules, their own like handles on different things. Like, certain special dragons get handled different ways by different tribes. And yeah, it's really interesting how each tribe has their own skills. It's weird because they're obviously different species, but they can still speak the same language. Like, that's kind of strange, but mostly it's just really great. The world building. You have so much lore in Wings of Fire. Warriors has its own fair share of lore too, and if that's something you're into, then Wings of Fire should definitely be something you check out. One big complaint I heard recently about Wings of Fire is that they get into these crazy, super tense, super serious, super like life-changing potentially situations, and they don't seem to take it as seriously as they should. Like, there's certain situations. I'm just gonna spoil one thing from the first book. One little thing, don't worry. They're in prison, and basically there's a huge chance that they're gonna die. They're not thinking about, like, oh my god, I'm gonna die. There's a little bit of tenseness around there. There's a little bit of dread, you know, about going to uh, whatever deadly situation they're going to go into. But it's not quite as, they're not, they don't seem to realize how serious the situation is, how life-changing and life-threatening this is. And yeah, they don't seem to realize the severity of the situation. But that doesn't happen too often. And generally, Wings of Fire is really great. And even if you don't like the first couple of books, some people don't, um, stick with it, because I love the first books just fine. I actually really like them. But later on, I must admit, it does get better and better and better and better, breaking my expectations every single book that gets released. So definitely stick around, even if you don't like the first couple. Bear with me, like, bear with me, and just like get it done so that you can get to the really good parts and you won't be confused. Um, yeah, so there you go. One huge thing that I just adore with all my soul about Wings of Fire is that it's super, super consistent. It's very, most of the books are just really good. there's very few books that I'd say I dislike besides Winter Turning, but that's just because I don't like winter and I don't like Ice Wings. So that's not really her fault necessarily. I don't know, something just didn't click with me with Winter Turning, but most of the books are just really, really, really good. They're just great. And they all have a consistent style. All of them have a consistent like level of maturity, I guess. A consistent everything's consistent and it's really nice. And that doesn't mean like the same things are happening over and over. New things, mind-blowing, shocking things happen all the time. Things that just blow your mind that you never would have expected just happen like all the time. But the writing style just stays consistent and neat and lovely, and the characters, they stay consistent. Like, maybe except for Anemone, possibly. Even so, not really. But most of the characters, they all have their personality set. And unless something really big happens to change that, unless they can prove themselves somehow and do something differently, they're going to have the same personality and be regarded with the same, I guess, level of respect every single book, unless they change something themselves. And I really like that. Some dragons are just awful dragons from the start and just stay awful dragons. Some dragons, they just feel more human because they're more they have their own thing, their own stuff. They have their own hobbies. They have their own like personalities and reactions to different events. And it just feels like they're human in a way that almost no other human or cat or fox that I've ever read about ever has. And so I really love that about Wings of Fire. Now, I'm not saying that I like Wings of Fire more than Warriors. I'd say they're about the same. Just because Warriors, it has its own benefits as well. Like, having cats instead of dragons is a lot easier to imagine more consistently. A lot of the books like have huge amounts of nostalgia like attached to me, and generally like there are bits where Warriors succeeds. They have their website, their merch, and generally it's good. It's the books themselves are good, and then of course you have the Warriors fandom, which is larger and more old than the Wings of Fire fandom, which is nice, and it adds a lot of fun stuff to do when you're not reading. Wings of Fire has less of that, but still, I'd say they're about equal. But if you're looking for a book, if you're not looking for a fandom or merch or a good website or content, then this is better as far as writing goes. That's just my honest opinion. That's just that. Mostly, my big thing that I really love about this is that everything ties together. It's like Tweety had this entire series planned out from day one of sitting down with a pencil and paper. It feels very connected. It feels like a real living, breathing world where events from way back when affect events for the rest of forever, and events from here tie into the past in ways that can be unexpected and sometimes very not surprising. Like even little things like a run-in with a scavenger, or like a little thing that happened with some persons that at some point that isn't really that memorable. She remembers it, and she finds a way to turn it into this big reveal or into this big like whole nother story from this one event, and it just totally, this one tiny little thing just ripples and becomes a whole new plot line, and in a way that many books don't. Usually you have these, there's no plot holes is my point. There's none, as far as I can tell. There's almost absolutely none. Everything matters to the grand finale, and the grand finale, as far as I hope, is never. Like, I really hope it's never. But everything matters for the rest of forever, and nothing's forgotten, because that's kind of how history is. Like, even little things can turn into huge things, like how that one guy got assassinated and started World War One, where like way more people got killed and whatever. That was one event leading into a huge thing that impacted history forever. like that's kind of how history is, right? Little things happen and no one thinks much of it, and then whoa, right? So I'm really happy with how that works. How everything means something, and that's great. Like there's some things in Warriors, like Cinderheart's whole thing, the stick, like none of that really ended in anything. Like those events are forgotten, they're in the past, no one even cares at all, and no events from the past are mostly none of those loose plot holes are ever going to come into anything ever, and they were just kind of like there to fill in our time and waste our time basically so that they can make the book look bigger and more, I guess, full. I don't know, but I'm not calling them bad writers. I'm just saying that some plot points they just kind of like are there and then kind of don't do anything. This does not happen with Wings of Fire. It does not happen. I can't think of anything. I genuinely can't. So maybe there are one or two that I'm forgetting, but almost everything is there for a reason, and I love it. I love it, and yeah, that's my main thing with Wings of Fire is that everything's really consistent. Everything's really together. Oh, everything is related to everything in every way, and I love it. So yeah, that's my honest review on Wings of Fire. Why I recommend it. Um, Basically, why it's popular beyond oh cool dragons, and yeah. So if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like and comments. Make sure to check out Wings of Fire because it's great. And yeah, I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.